Ever feel like the textbook version of Darwin kind of skips a few chapters? Like, how do you go from dissecting slugs to totally flipping how we see life on Earth?
Right.
Well, that's what we're diving into today, the real Darwin,
Yeah.
using this excerpt from Instant Text that you sent over.
It is interesting how many twists and
Oh,
turns
yeah.
there were on his way to on the origin of species. It definitely wasn't a straight line.
No, not at all.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
so picture this young Charles, born into privilege, right?
Yeah.
Dad's a doctor, expects him to follow in his footsteps.
Of course.
You know, the drill, family expectations. You ever feel that pressure?
Yeah, I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Totally. So Darwin gets shipped off to med school in Edinburgh. Hates it.
Can you blame him? Surgery back then? It was brutal. No anesthesia. Talk about survival of the fittest, but for the patient's sake, hopefully their stomach could handle it.
Oof, yeah, not a recipe for a good time.
Mm.
You know, it's funny, though. Darwin was prone to seasickness, which actually becomes a turning point in his life.
Ah, how so?
Well, he's miserable at sea, right? So if he'd stuck with surgery, who knows what medical marvels we might have gotten.
Sure.
But will we have gotten his theory of evolution?
Good point. It makes you think about how these seemingly small choices
Oh, absolutely.
can have such massive ripple
It's
effects.
like a butterfly effect moment in history. So, medical school's a no-go.
Right.
What's next on the Darwin family career bingo card? Clergyman. Talk about a plot twist. Off he goes to Cambridge, studying to be a man of the cloth.
And this is where things get really interesting. At Cambridge, he really dives into William Paley's natural theology, which argues for divine design in nature. So imagine, the future father of evolution, totally engrossed in ideas he would later completely overturn.
It really highlights how deeply ingrained those ideas were back then. But Cambridge wasn't all theology for Darwin. He meets John Stevens Henslow, a botanist, who really gets Darwin into this world of meticulous scientific observation. And then there's Alexander von Humboldt with his wild tales of scientific adventures.
Oh, yeah. Talk about inspiration.
Right. Talk about planting the seed for adventure.
Totally. It's like these encounters lit a fire in Darwin, this thirst for something beyond textbooks and classrooms.
Absolutely. And that brings us to the HMS Beagle. 5 years, a cramped ship, sailing around the globe. And this isn't a pleasure cruise. He's seasick, he's collecting specimens, meticulously recording everything he sees.
He was not just a passenger on this voyage, he was a working scientist.
Exactly. This is where Darwin, the observer, truly emerges. He's not just passively watching the world go by, he's collecting beetles in rainforests, marveling at giant tortoises, sketching finches with all kinds of beaks. Every specimen, every observation, a clue that's leading him closer and closer to this revolutionary theory.
And nowhere are these clues more abundant than in the Galapagos Islands, this collection of volcanic islands teeming with the most unique creatures.
Oh,
It's
absolutely.
like a living laboratory of evolution.
It really is.
Darwin starts to notice that finches on each island, their beaks were perfectly adapted to their specific food sources.
It's incredible, right?
It is. Long and slender beaks for insects, short, stout ones for cracking seeds.
It's like the classic example.
Yeah.
And this is it, right? This is the aha moment, the light bulb. The pieces of the puzzle start falling into place. If these finches, all related, had evolved differently based on their environment, could this be happening everywhere?
Exactly.
And with every new observation, this simple but profound truth dawns on him. Species aren't fixed. They're changing, adapting, evolving.
It's a revolutionary idea.
Totally.
But here's the thing. Unraveling this mystery of evolution, it wasn't just about scientific discovery. It was about challenging deeply held beliefs.
Yeah.
Imagine those discoveries sinking in as he's sailing home. He knew he was sitting on a powder keg of an idea.
Absolutely. So Darwin's back in England, right? Notebooks full of observations, his mind probably buzzing with this radical new understanding of life on Earth.
I can't even
So
imagine.
does he shout it from the rooftops? No.
No.
He waits 20 years. Can you imagine sitting on a discovery that massive for that long?
It's kind of mind-blowing. Why the hesitation, though?
Well, remember, challenging the accepted narrative, especially back then, big risk.
Oh, totally. You're talking about going up against centuries of deeply ingrained beliefs about creationism.
Exactly. Saying species weren't fixed, that they evolved. It would have been a cultural earthquake. And don't forget, Darwin wasn't just some lone genius. He was reading, researching, trying to build an ironclad case for his theory.
Right, like any good scientist.
Exactly. And that's where Charles Lyell comes in,
The geologist.
the one and only. Lyell's work on how the Earth itself changes over these vast stretches of time, it was huge for Darwin. We're not talking about sudden divine creation here. We're talking about slow, steady forces shaping life over millennia.
It's like the Earth itself is evolving.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then there's the influence of, get this, an economist, Thomas Malthus.
What? How does economics fit into all of this?
Well, Malthus was writing about population growth, right? The struggle for resources.
I see where you're going with this.
And Darwin sees this parallel in nature. The struggle for existence isn't just some abstract concept. It's a reflection of the world around him.
It all starts to connect.
Right. It's like economics, geology, natural history. It's all feeding into Darwin's thinking. Okay, so picture this step. Darwin's been meticulously building his case for 2 decades, right? And then a letter arrives from Alfred Russel Wallace, a naturalist working in Indonesia. And guess what?
He discovered natural selection, too.
Bingo. Independently formulated a very similar theory.
Wow. Talk about a twist of fate. What did Darwin do?
Talk about a dilemma, right? Here he is, about to be scooped. Thankfully, his buddies, Charles Lyell and Joseph Hooker, they come up with a plan. They arrange for Darwin's and Wallace's work to be presented jointly at the Linnean Society in 1858.
Very diplomatic, but I bet it was still a nerve-wracking moment. Did it cause an uproar?
You'd think, right.
Yeah.
But surprisingly, the initial reaction was pretty low-key. It wasn't until the next year, when Darwin publishes On the Origin of Species, that things really explode.
That's the big one.
It's a game changer. You can almost feel the ground shifting beneath the scientific community. And it wasn't just a scientific treatise, it was a cultural bombshell. Suddenly, people are forced to confront this whole new way of looking at the world at their place in it.
I bet the debates were intense.
Oh, absolutely. On one side, you've got ardent supporters like Thomas Huxley, Darwin's bulldog, fiercely defending evolution.
Love that nickname.
Right. And on the other side, you've got those who see Darwin's theory as a direct attack on religious beliefs.
A classic clash of science and religion.
Exactly. It shows how groundbreaking discoveries don't just change our understanding of nature, they force us to re-examine our values, our beliefs, everything. But Darwin, ever the restless mind, he doesn't stop there. He'd solved one mystery, but there were still so many questions.
Of course.
And maybe the biggest one of all. If evolution shaped all life on Earth, what about us?
That's the big question, isn't it?
And that question led to Darwin's even more controversial work, The Descent of Man, published in 1871.
The Descent of Man. Just the title alone must have ruffled some feathers.
Oh, you know it did. So we've got Darwin, this scientific revolutionary, right? Shaking the foundations of biology, sparking these debates that are still going strong today.
Yeah, his impact is undeniable.
But his curiosity never really went away. That drive to uncover the secrets of the natural world.
It's what makes a great scientist, isn't it?
Totally. So he solves this massive puzzle of evolution. And you know what captivated him next?
What's that?
Earthworms.
Earthworms, really?
Yeah. He spent years studying them, meticulously observing their behavior, even measuring how much soil they moved around.
I mean, it's not exactly dinosaurs, is it?
No, not quite as glamorous. But it shows how Darwin approached science, right? Even the seemingly insignificant could hold these keys to grand discoveries.
It's a good reminder for all of us, I think.
Right. Next time you see an earthworm, maybe give it a little nod of respect. But we got to be honest here. Not everyone was thrilled with Darwin's ideas.
Oh, definitely not. Still isn't.
Right. Even today, they spark debate and controversy.
And that's the thing about groundbreaking work, right? It keeps challenging us, provoking us, pushing the boundaries of how we understand the world.
It's like he gave us this map.
Yeah, a map to a whole new way of seeing life.
Exactly. And now, with all these new tools and knowledge, we can explore the terrain in even greater detail.
It's amazing to think how far we've come since Darwin's time. I mean, genetics, for example.
Oh yeah, talk about a game changer.
It's like Darwin provided the blueprint for evolution.
The framework, yeah.
Exactly. And then genetics came along and showed us the building blocks, the mechanisms of heredity, the variations that drive the whole process.
It's not just survival of the fittest anymore. It's about understanding this incredible interplay of genes, environment, chance.
It's incredibly complex.
It is. And the story's still being written, right?
Absolutely. I mean, we're sequencing genomes, uncovering the secrets of ancient DNA. We're seeing evolution happening right in front of us with new viruses and stuff.
It's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it.
Yeah. It really is. And through it all, Darwin's ideas are still guiding us, pushing us to ask new questions to keep exploring.
It's a pretty incredible legacy. And to think it all started with a curious mind, a healthy dose of skepticism, and a 5-year voyage on a tiny ship.
Proof that big discoveries can come from the most unexpected
This
places.
is the beauty of science, right?
Absolutely. It makes you wonder what other mysteries are out there just waiting to be unraveled.
And what role will each of you listening play in uncovering them? That's something to ponder as we wrap up our deep dive into the life and legacy of Charles Darwin. Thanks for joining us.